Understanding the spirit world. Man has tried to deepen his understanding of the spirit world, unfortunately with little success. It is not well photographed, nor can spiritual choirs singing hallelujahs be easily recorded. Although it is the subject of much curiosity, we must also realize that it is the world of our origins and, at the same time, the world in which we will live eternally. Communicating with God in prayer or through meditation, visions or dreams should be enough to convince us that it is real. But many feel that these proofs are not enough. A person who knew with certainty that thousands and even millions of spirits are around her and watching her at all times would naturally behave differently than she normally does. If we were absolutely convinced that God is with us at all times, we would act in such a way as not to disappoint Him. And we would live according to His designed purpose of creation, since He is the Creator who determines the purpose and evolution of the created thing. But to many people these ideas seem conjectural and purely abstract, because they claim that there is no proof even of God's own existence. When we think of the spirit world, therefore, we should not think of a distant place. Instead, we should consider and understand the spirit world as the environment in which spirits live. It is a world with its own set of laws and regulations, but it is undoubtedly composed of elements very different from minerals, vegetation, and animals. Fallen man generally sees things in physical terms. Again, because we do not see spiritually, we do not realize that we are interacting within a certain level of the spirit world at this time. We cannot perceive whether we are in a room with gold brocade and spiritual silk or with soot and ashes. We do not know how spiritual beings see us, nor can we accurately perceive our spiritual state at this moment. But any misperception or misunderstanding of the spirit world does not make it any less real. So many thoughts and emotions are not our own, but the result of this interaction with entities, people from the spiritual world. While some believe that there is an electromagnetic force or aura around each person, others discard this possibility completely. Because their spiritual senses are closed due to the fall that brought about the origin of evil and sin, and, in separation with God, for man to live in a barbaric state, most people cannot detect the spiritual vibration that surrounds and emanates from each person. However, when we use sensitivity, we can detect the vibrations emanating from each person, although this phase is invisible. Often, depending on a person's state of mind, we are either attracted to his or her proximity or repelled by what he or she projects. In fact, giving/having with positive people or people who have a higher spiritual level than us recharges us with positive energy. Conversely, giving/having with spiritually low or evil people can create even psychophysical disorders, such as migraines, gastrointestinal pain, and even drowsiness or panic attacks. This is because such people are energy vampires, and just relating to them can empty us spiritually. We see the effects of the wind, we tend to believe in its existence. The fact that we do not see the spiritual world does not mean that it does not exist. We must learn to perceive its effects, discerning in particular the influence that spiritual people have on our lives. While poltergeists may be relatively rare, there are other less tangible ways in which spirits can make their presence felt in our lives. We need to rid ourselves of fear and ignorance about them and the spiritual world in general. In fact, if we could recognize them, we might even generate greater cooperation between the two worlds. Also because, believers or non-believers, the reality of the spiritual world, directly or indirectly afflicts every person's life and often determines their moods and even situations and interactions with people or facts in life both positively and negatively. Man's ignorance about his spiritual situation has been perpetuated over the centuries. As a result, most people are afraid of death. We do not know what will happen, if anything at all. Man may secretly hope that life is eternal, but he does not have absolute certainty. He may also keep quiet about his suspicions, but then his many questions may remain unanswered. As a result, he does not know how to live, what priorities to emphasize, and what goals to set. Although a number of people have had a near-death experience, not everyone believes that what happened to these individuals was a valid event. Yet books and radio and TV talk shows often highlight these encounters. Audiences find them fascinating because discovering the possibility that the spiritual world really exists stimulates the imagination and instills hope. The vast majority of those who have had such an experience say that they only later realized what the focus of human life should be. Every moment is precious and, to be of full value, life must be lived for the benefit of others because loving and receiving life energy and love from God and sharing it with others is the quickest way, as Jesus himself taught, to grow spiritually in heart and love. That is why the most important thing in a person's life is to investigate and grow in the knowledge of spiritual laws and rules so that, just as a fetus is important to be born in a complete physical situation, without handicaps in order to fully enjoy life in this earthly world, the same is true on a spiritual level. It is important to know what principles and rules are valuable and important in order to evolve as completely as possible spiritually, and to prepare oneself to fully enjoy the wonderful eternal, spiritual life that God has prepared for each of His children in His kingdom. Some people, mediums or otherwise people with open spiritual senses, have had experiences with the lower realms of the spirit world. A failed suicide attempt, for example, can encourage a person to drastically change his or her life. His encounters with spiritually evil beings and people, and the conditions he experienced in the infernal levels of the spiritual world, which he visited, gave him a glimpse of where he might live if his life was continued in an evil manner. And it might give him enough insight to understand that what he does in his life affects the level in which he will live when he enters the spiritual world at his physical death. Some people who have received an understanding of the spiritual world, becoming the channel of automatic writing, dreams or prophetic visions and the like, have revealed some aspects of life in that world, conveyed by people in spirit. But man's spiritual senses are still dulled, and so none of us is able to get an accurate or total idea of the spiritual world. It is not difficult for any of us to conjure up in our minds images of life among lush and beautiful gardens full of flowers and fruits, or even a scene of fiery pits. But inevitably we wonder how true and realistic these images are and what life there will really be like. Although a number of people have had a near-death experience, not everyone believes what was a valid event for them. However, books and radio and TV talk shows often highlight these encounters. Audiences find them fascinating because discovering the possibility that the spirit world really exists stimulates the imagination and instills hope. The vast majority of those who have had such an experience say that they only later realized what the focus of human life should be. Every moment is precious and, to be of full value, life must be lived for the benefit of God and others.